Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We're here to have another conversation about astrology. My name's Roxanne, and I'm here with Millie from Astro Consciousness. We were here 2 weeks ago talking about the eclipse that we had. And actually Sunday, we're having another eclipse. It's kind of what astrologers would probably call eclipse season right now. And we're also going to talk about Mercury Retrograde, and Sunday is the summer solstice. So we're going to be tying that all in together while we talk about what's happening right now astrology wise. So we thank everybody who's here for joining us. Please feel free to leave comments. I'll try to get back to some of them if I can, but just hang out and enjoy the conversation, and hopefully everybody will be able to take something from this. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Millie. Let her introduce herself.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us again. It's so much fun to be here and to be able to talk to Roxanne about this stuff we love so much, that is so important to us, because it's a guide, essentially. It's a guide. It gives us, when we use it as a tool, it gives us peace, it gives us validation. And so I'm just always really excited to be able to do this.
Me too. It's so funny because, I mentioned this last time, but Millie and I are best friends. We've been friends since, I think we met when my daughter was about 6 months old. Yeah. And now she's 12 and a half. She'll be 13 in November, which is really scary. And these are the conversations that her and I just have, and so being able to bring that conversation on this platform is really exciting, and just to be able to share and really have it just be a very natural conversation that her and I would normally just have on the phone. So we're excited to share that with people. When I have shared some of our conversations with other people, I found that people are really interested in learning more about astrology, learning more about going a little bit deeper than what we normally hear about astrology. So that's really kind of what we're going to do with this conversation. Millie is going to translate some of her part as much as she can to share with you some of the key aspects and information. And that's really it. So I'll let you go ahead and jump into some of that.
Okay, cool. So we have a new moon Cancer eclipse happening this Sunday, June 21st. Okay. And eclipses happen in what they call series. Okay. So we have different series and different axis points of the astrological chart. So we have, Aries, Libra axis, we have Gemini, Sagittarius axis, Taurus, Scorpio axis, and right now we're ending the Cancer, Capricorn axis or series of eclipses that started back in July of 2018. So one of the most important things to take away from this is that this is a cycle, okay? This is a cycle that started 2 years ago. And what happens in that is that we have what we call a south node, and then we have what we call a north node. And each of those is in one of the signs. So this series of eclipses that started in July of 2018 started with the south node in Capricorn and the north node in Cancer, okay? A lot of times how this will be presented is that the south node is bad and the north node is good. And that's it's an oversimplification, if anything, it doesn't work that way. The south node talks about outdated and outmoded ways of functioning that need transformation and change through the north node qualities.
Okay. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, right?
But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It's just evolutionary, and it represents growth. In a second I'll explain what having the north node in Cancer and having the south node in Capricorn means, for us as we see it in the world.
Can you translate that part real quick? Because that was real important. I want to make sure everybody gets it.
For sure. Vamos a discutir el eclipse en Cáncer de luna nueva que tenemos el domingo 21 de junio. Este eclipse es parte de una serie de eclipses que empezó el julio del 2018, ¿ok? Todos los eclipses tienen ciclos y todos los eclipses suceden en pares, ¿ok? Y suceden en el axis. So, por ejemplo, tenemos el axis de Aries Libra, tenemos el axis de Tauro Escorpio, el axis de Géminis Sagitario, y ahorita estamos en el axis de Cáncer Capricornio, ¿ok? Eso quiere decir que cuando estos ciclos empiezan, lo que tenga que ver con Capricornio y con Cáncer, por ejemplo, donde eso caiga en nuestras cartas natales, por ejemplo, va a haber una transformación y va a haber un cambio, lo queramos o no. Entonces, tenemos lo que se llama el nodo sur y el nodo norte. El nodo sur en esta ocasión está en Capricornio y el nodo norte está en Cáncer. Ahora, el modo en que a veces se explica el nodo norte y el nodo sur es como que uno es bueno y uno es malo. Y esa es una simplificación muy amplia en la cual no necesariamente, las cosas no necesariamente funcionan así. El nodo norte es evolución y el nodo sur es lo que se tiene que dejar atrás. No porque es malo, sino que porque algo nos está llamando a crecer. En donde sea que la parte Cáncer caiga en tu carta natal individual, por ejemplo, ahí es donde vas a evolucionar, y donde caiga el nodo sur de Capricornio es algo que tienes que dejar. Y en un momento voy a explicar los arquetipos y lo que significa cada signo para que se entienda. So, okay. So we have this Cancer eclipse happening on Sunday, right? And so the first and the most notable thing to express is that it happens at 0 degrees Cancer. 0 degrees in astrology is a big deal, okay? Because it's 0, it represents a beginning. But because it represents a beginning, it represents an end, right? In order for something to start, something needs to end. And so 0 can be nothing or everything. And I want to really sit on that for a little bit, because it's how we exist. We are nothing and we are everything in how we live, right? So when we can accept that we are nothing and everything on this field, on this plane, then there's no attachment to something in particular. Therefore, growth and evolution towards something new is inevitable, right?
That right there is so huge right now. Sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
I see so many people just desperately trying to hold on to the old, because that's all we know. That's what we know, that it's scary to transition to something else. You know, there's a lot of conversations right now about defunding the police. I prefer like changing it from being so military style and so militant, rather than necessarily completely funding it. But that triggers a lot of people. And I've had conversations online with people about it. And some of them we've been able to kind of understand where the other person is coming from, and sometimes not. But, you know, I just see that happening everywhere. And we're just so desperately hanging on to these old ways because it's all we know.
Exactly. Lo que le estaba explicando a Roxanne es que este eclipse sucede en el grado 0 de Cáncer. En la astrología, cada signo tiene 30 grados, tiene 30 grados de evolución. Empezamos en el 0. No todos los eclipses, no todos los eventos astrológicos comienzan en el grado 0. Entonces, el hecho de que este eclipse, que sea el último de la serie de Cáncer Capricornio, que empiece en 0, es algo muy grande, porque el cero significa todo y nada. Quiere decir que hay un comienzo, pero para que haya un comienzo tiene que haber algo que haya terminado antes, ¿no? Entonces lo que Roxanne estaba diciendo es que ella lo está viendo mucho ahorita, que está viendo la evolución que, o sea, no se puede ignorar, pero también está viendo cómo hay cierto grupo de personas que quieren mantener lo mismo, quieren mantener el status quo, ¿no? And so I'm saying that there are a lot of people who want to keep the status quo, and status quo is very much a Capricorn in the South Node, what we're supposed to be evolutionizing from.
Yes.
It's very much a Capricorn archetype. It's very much a Capricorn term.
Right. Great example. Yeah.
El status quo es una palabra capricorniana. Es hacer las cosas como se tienen que hacer, pero lo que pasa es que estamos evolucionando de eso. Entonces, tenemos la oposición de Cáncer y Capricornio, Cáncer tratando de evolucionar a algo nuevo y Capricornio tratando de mantenerlo. So, we have the opposition of Cancer Capricorn creating something new at a fundamental foundational level, a new sense of home from this very, very strict, different foundation, right?
Yeah.
We have Capricorn has to do with public office. Capricorn has to do with politics, politicians, people in power, capitalism. So it's not just the South Node being in Capricorn that has lifted this veil, right? That has lifted this veil. It has been the South Node, it has been Pluto, it has been Saturn there, okay? All of these forces together have broken down these systems, some literally, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But others, they have broken down our vision of that, okay? They've broken down our vision of that. They've lifted a veil in which we're beginning to see what has been hiding all along, or what's been hidden from us all along. So I'll translate real quickly. Mm-hmm. El nodo sur o Capricornio tiene que ver con lo político, con empresas, con las reglas. Y tenemos el nodo sur, que expliqué anteriormente, que tiene que ver con algo que se tiene que dejar atrás, que tiene que evolucionar a algo de conciencia más alta, a algo que sea más inclusivo a todos. Pero no es solo el nodo sur que ha hecho este cambio, sino que también tenemos planetas como Plutón y Saturno, que significan destrucción prácticamente. Plutón significa transformación de lo que hay. Tenemos Plutón y Capricornio, transformación de lo que se ha hecho por muchos años, ¿ok? Y a lo que se va a evolucionar es al nodo norte en Cáncer, que es una sensación nueva de hogar, que es más inclusivo para todos los que están alrededor. No solo para uno mismo, pero es, como dije, es más inclusivo. So we have that, right? So on my posts, for the last 2 years, for instance, I've been posting or writing a lot about creating a new sense of home and seeing how you are within. What is your authentic self beyond the facade of what you do for a living, beyond the facade of what the four walls that you live within look like. Because there was no way to say that we were going to be in quarantine, right? It's so interesting that these eclipses have had to do with bringing ourselves back home. And for the last 6 months, half of those 6 months, we were literally brought back home.
Yeah.
Literally. How could we have known that?
Yeah.
But, and I'm not saying that, you know, these eclipses or any astrological alignment really created the pandemic and all of this, but it happened as it happened. You can't deny the timing, right? And so bringing us home, literally and physically, has had a lot of people thinking, a lot of people seeing things for what they are, lifting that veil that shows us how privilege works, lifting that veil that shows us how capitalism can work sometimes, and sometimes it's questionable, right? How corruption works, how racism works.
Yes.
These are ingrained values. These are ingrained values that have, that whether we've wanted to see them or not, have been hidden, and now we see them because we have no other choice. So the same way that we are seeing everything around us for what it is, it's the same way that we've had to see parts of ourselves for what they are, right?
A lot of people are experiencing that. I think just coming to terms with maybe their own biases that they had that they didn't realize they had, you know, and they genuinely thought they weren't racist people, but maybe I am a little biased towards this kind of person or that kind of person when I see them in public, let's say, just for an example. And some people are looking at this time as a time for them to grow and learn. And listen. I've seen a lot of people saying things like that. I wish I could hear more politicians saying things like that. Although we do have some. And then you see the way people are reacting to that. Then you see the opposite of the people who would just want to shut it down and who want to say, no, that's not the way it is. This is not what's happening. I don't care what the veil is showing us. I'm going to go back to still thinking what I've always thought, regardless of all this new information that's coming to light.
Right. Right. Lo que le estaba explicando a Roxanne era que con este eclipse, bueno, los últimos 2 años, cuando empezó la serie de los eclipses de Cáncer Capricornio, lo que yo escribía mucho en mis redes era sobre encontrar una nueva sensación de hogar entre uno mismo, encontrar una nueva sensación de ser más honesto con uno, de dónde uno viene, sin tener que ver lo que haces de trabajo, sin tener que ver dónde vives, con quién vives. Cáncer es el signo del hogar, ¿ok? Cáncer es el signo de la madre. Cáncer es un signo de agua. Cáncer es el signo de la luna. Todo eso tiene que ver con nuestro proceso emocional. Entonces, nuestro proceso emocional dentro de nosotros es lo más privado que tenemos. Es el hogar más privado en el cual nosotros habitamos. Nos habitamos a nosotros mismos. Entonces, en lo que yo estaba escribiendo era tratar de encontrar una nueva sensación de hogar, una nueva sensación de hogar. No porque yo sabía que iba a pasar la pandemia, no porque yo sabía que nos iban a tener en cuarentena, sino, y nunca, no creo que nadie se imaginó que íbamos a meternos en casa literalmente. Pero sí, nos tuvieron que meter en casa literalmente. Es increíble ver cómo esos signos de cáncer se pueden ver, esas señales de cáncer, ese símbolo de cáncer se vio tan literalmente. Entonces, estando en casa, teniendo que estar en casa, empezamos a ver, se empezó a levantar el velo, del racismo, del racismo que estaba ahí, no lo queríamos aceptar, no lo queríamos ver. Se empezó a levantar el velo en la corrupción, ¿verdad? Pero así como vimos todo eso alrededor de nosotros, también empezamos a ver cosas de nosotros, de cómo nos habitamos, el por qué, de dónde vienen la raíz de hogar, las creencias tan arraigadas que tenemos, de dónde vienen. Empezamos a ver esas cosas de nosotros. Entonces allí es donde empieza el trabajo, ahí es donde se ha ido evolucionando el trabajo de Cáncer y Capricornio a un nivel individual. So what I added was that being home literally, has had us look at ourselves, right? We've had no choice, and we've been looking at ourselves, whether we realize it or not. These belief systems have been under um, almost self-scrutiny,
Yeah.
in the last 2 years, whether we realize it or not. But being in quarantine, we've had to look at it. And so on an individual level, that's how you see the Capricorn, the Cancer Capricorn axis working. What is this foundation that we have been carrying around, that we function from? Where did that come from, right? Cancer has to do with the mother, the protector, the moon. It's a water sign. So when we think about that, that has to do with family history, with our mother, with the belief systems that come from families, and how much we function from that. How much we function from that without questioning. Sometimes we just function to function.
That right there is huge. I see so many people that are a particular religion because their parents are that religion, right? We don't necessarily always question that, whether Catholic or Christian or Muslim, whatever it may be. That's something that comes from our family. Some of us have questioned that since we were little and said, wait a minute, maybe I should look more into this, or I should become more knowledgeable and find more information about certain things. And some that just take on that religion because that is what they know. And even though they might have some questions or some things that maybe don't always make sense to them, they still continue within that. And I actually saw, now that I think about it, somebody from high school who posted something recently about being Catholic all his life, and then kind of questioning some of that when you look at things that have happened with kids, specifically young boys within the church, and then also the secrecy and the covering up of those things. And when he posted that, of course, there were a lot of people that came after him and said, you can't say this. This is our family religion.
Wow.
Yeah. And why is questioning things so bad? Why is it bad for us to question? I've always been a person who questions things because there's this little voice in my head, I call it my intuition, that says, I don't know about that. Maybe we should find out a little bit more, right? Right. There's something, and I think a lot of people feel that too, and maybe they kind of shut that down. And I think that's our intuition trying to give us some kind of a signal. Not saying that religion is bad or you should change your religion or anything like that, but there are people who have certain questions who feel very uncomfortable with trying to bring that up or ask questions about things that have always been there.
Absolutely.
Foundation. Yeah.
Part of creating an authentic self, part of creating your own sense of home, we need to amplify most of our words because they're very constricted with the definitions that are saturated with human conditioning, right? But when we amplify a word like home, for instance, when it's extended, it's interesting that I'm using the word extended and I mean going within, right? Because when we think of extension, we think outward.
Right.
But I think that we are starting to see people extending within. We're tired of looking without because the without hasn't served us very well, right? So we're starting to think of compassion. We're starting to think of putting ourselves in other people's shoes. We're starting to really actually pause and say, I don't know everything I thought I knew. And so Capricorn, and it's in a lower manifestation, in a lower sense of consciousness, can be quite a bit of a know-it-all. There's an arrogance that I am the master of this and I know more. But with the South Node, Pluto, and Saturn there, that's not the case. Let's get more in touch with the inside. Let's get more in touch with within. Okay, I don't really know what that means. Perfect. Let's start figuring out what that means to you. Okay. Le estaba explicando a Roxanne que hay que expander la definición de nuestras palabras, porque nuestras palabras están construidas y están saturadas del condicionamiento social, el condicionamiento religioso, el condicionamiento educacional. Entonces, salir de eso para expander una palabra, por ejemplo, como el hogar. Yo he escribido mucho de tratar de crear una nueva sensación de hogar dentro de nosotros. Y le explicaba que es interesante usar la palabra expander para ir hacia adentro. Cuando, por lo general, cuando uno expande, uno piensa en afuera. Pero lo que nos hemos fijado o lo que nos estamos dando cuenta ahorita es que lo de afuera no nos ha ayudado mucho. Eso es la energía de Capricornio cuando no está muy elevada, cuando la conciencia no está elevada. Capricornio puede ser un poco arrogante, puede ser un poco el saberlo todo, porque es el signo de la masterización, ¿no? Entonces, ahorita nos estamos dando cuenta de que esa masterización de todo lo que nos rodea no necesariamente está bien. Entonces vamos al signo opuesto de Cáncer, donde vamos adentro. Empezamos a cuestionar, yo no sabía tanto como pensaba que sabía. Yo no había cuestionado eso. Entonces, ¿en qué creo? Y allí es donde empieza el trabajo. Allí es donde empiezas a crear una nueva sensación de hogar dentro de ti, donde tú empiezas a crear nuevos fundamentos de los cuales entonces puedes seguir actuando.
Yeah. I don't know if there's more you want to cover as far as that, but I was just thinking maybe bringing in Mercury retrograde and how that kind of, because that's a phrase that's thrown around a lot.
Right.
Unfortunately, as we know, Mercury retrograde tends to have a negative connotation whenever it happens, because things can get a little bit crazy. Mm-hmm. But I think it would be great to talk more about that so people have a better understanding of what that actually means. And it's actually more of going within as well, which is always the answer.
Absolutely. So Mercury retrograde will retrograde in the sign of Cancer. Okay. So so Mercury represents our cognitive processing. Okay. Thoughts, information, data in the simplest of ways. So we have energy that functions on a cognitive level, and then it's in the sign of Cancer that functions more on an emotional level. Mm-hmm. Those are two different energies working together. But when we can understand that difference, and when we can understand the overall energy, which is the Cancer eclipse that we're experiencing already, even though the exact eclipse happens on Sunday, we begin our process, our thinking process begins to go within. It's the more within, it's going in again. It's redefining, questioning, revisiting certain foundational beliefs in order to come out on the other side, hopefully with a higher level of consciousness, right? Roxanne me preguntó sobre Mercurio retrógrado. Y Mercurio retrógrado, por lo general, se ve o lo explican como algo malo. No es que sea malo, sino que es otro ciclo. Entonces, Mercurio representa cómo nosotros procesamos los pensamientos, ¿ok? Como la información, la data, un proceso un poco más superficial. pero luego está en el signo de Cáncer. Y Cáncer es un signo de agua y es un signo más emocional. ¿Por qué? Porque lo rige la luna. Entonces tenemos dos energías bastante diferentes juntas en este momento, retrógradas. Eso quiere decir que el pensamiento se está poniendo un poco, las revoluciones no son tan rápidas. Nosotros estamos tomándonos el tiempo para, una vez más, volver adentro y pensar, revisar qué significa eso para nosotros. So, I thought it was interesting that we have, we're in the year 2020, right? And I thought how clearly we're seeing things. We're seeing things with 2020 vision.
Yeah.
Right? And so I thought about that and I thought, but the only way that could happen was to, again, be sent home with no other choice but to stay there and see everything happening around us. No distractions like the gym, no distractions like work, no distractions whatsoever, in order for us to see everything happening and have no other choice but to question, right? And so when we bring Mercury retrograde into that, it's slowing down our mental revolutions to see what is really going on. It's like you have to revisit, you have to review, you have to reconsider everything. It's had to do with that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Estaba pensando que estamos en el año 2020, ¿no? El 2020, ¿ok? Cuando nosotros vamos al oculista, nos hacen examen de visión y cuando puedes ver claro, tienes visión 2020, ¿ok? En este momento, en lo que estamos viviendo, estamos viendo todo claro. Estamos viendo todo como es, ¿ok? Entonces, Mercurio retrógrado entra en todo este mix, ¿no? Entra en todo esto y empezamos a revisar, empezamos a reconsiderar lo que significa todo lo que vemos, lo que significa para nosotros y cómo nosotros reestructuramos de adentro para afuera. So, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you talk about Mercury retrograde, you're talking about it in a very, very real way and how we feel it internally.
Right.
However, the way a lot of people hear about it typically is more on a surface level kind of way, right? So
right.
I thought it was really interesting on Tuesday how a bunch of people's phones went out.
Right.
You had T-Mobile, which I do. I couldn't make any calls or receive any calls. I was sending text messages thinking everything was good. And then I realized I wasn't getting any responses from anybody until later on when they just kind of came flooding in. And, it also affected people who had different carriers, Sprint, AT&T, Verizon. But then some people were like, I have Sprint and everything's fine. So it just kind of depends. And I like to point that out only to show people that sometimes is the way the universe says, hey, you need to stop. You need to slow down. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it so that you can't make any phone calls and and so you are kind of forced to go within. And that's the way I think of it. And there's, I love that you're going really deep with it. But I just like to point out some of those more surface level things that you'll see happening, emails that you didn't receive, a text message didn't go through. I mean, this can cause major fights in relationships.
Yeah.
And like that's like, you didn't text me when you got home the other night. And how do I know you got home? Stuff like that can cause, and maybe you feel like, damn it, that's Mercury retrograde's fault. But at the same time, if that wasn't meant to happen, it wouldn't have happened, in my opinion. And so
right.
that fight, even though it was triggered by a missed text, was a fight that needed to be had or a conversation that needed to be had to get these things out. So Mercury retrograde can kind of come in what appears to be a negative way, but it's actually just trying to redirect you. It's trying to get your attention and say, hey, this is going on. I need you to pay attention to this. A lot of times, sometimes people, I got a flat tire or my car won't start, during normal circumstances when we go to work. I went to go to work and my car won't start and I can't get to work. Well, Mercury retrograde felt you needed to be home or work from home today and reflect. And so that's just kind of the way I interpret it.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're totally right. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because it's true. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, the way that you explained it. It's yes, everybody knows Mercury retrograde as, your electronic stuff goes to poop, right? But yeah, it's for you to pause and stop and reflect and think. And in the moment when your mind is scattered and you can't find your keys because Mercury retrograde is doing something and you're like, I don't care what the message is right now. I just need my keys because I need to get, to wherever. That's the point, that you're always trying to get to wherever and you're never taking the time to, XYZ, everything I explained before.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what retrogrades are about, right? Slowing down, reflecting, trying to refresh yourself and giving yourself that time to say, it's okay to slow down. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Yeah.
Roxanne trajo un punto bastante importante, que es que mucha gente conoce a Mercurio retrógrado como algo malo, como algo donde solo se te arruinan las cosas, donde pierdes las llaves, donde hay bastante, la comunicación entre uno y otro no es muy clara. Entonces, mucha gente lo conoce así, pero no va más allá. Cualquier alineación astrológica que pase, cualquiera, simplemente amplifica lo que ya está. Entonces, por ejemplo, si durante Mercurio retrógrado tú tienes una discusión con tu pareja, no es que Mercurio retrógrado hizo que esa discusión pasara, sino que Mercurio retrógrado puso una lupa a esa situación para que la discusión se tuviera, porque la discusión ya probablemente ya tenía mucho tiempo que se tenía que tener. Pero como nosotros vivimos en modo autopiloto, nosotros vivimos constantemente yendo, no pausamos. Entonces, Mercurio retrógrado lo que hace es hacernos pausar, es hacernos desacelerar un poco, quitar el pie un poco del gas y poner atención a las cosas a las cuales se tienen que poner atención. Y me dio mucho gusto que ella trajo este punto, porque también tiene que ver dónde Mercurio está retrogradando en tu carta, y eso en tu carta natal, y eso te va a decir mucho, eso te va a dar muchas pistas a lo que le tienes que poner atención en este momento. So I added, I let them know that what you brought up is a really good point, that any astrological event doesn't make things happen. It just amplifies what needs to be looked at. It puts a magnifying glass on what's already there. And so what I added was that it's really important to understand that sometimes you have to take, your foot off the gas and really just pay attention, right?
Yeah. That's funny. I went to this Chinese medicine woman, who was also a doctor. I know Alma, La Comadre's founder, has seen a lot of similar doctors. And because we talked about last week, me having so much Sagittarius energy, which is definitely a very strong personality, a leader, very vocal, she told me that I need to get out of the driver's seat. She was like, you need to get out of the driver's seat. You need to get out of the driver's seat. You need to let somebody else drive, and you need to chill out. And I was like, damn it, how does she know me so well? And I had literally just met her, but she definitely had a skill where she was a very wise person. And she could just meet you and get that energy about you. And you're like, whoa, how does this lady know this about me? And you'd be surprised how strong your energy can be to people who are very receptive to it. And so that resonates with me, taking my foot off the gas pedal, which actually just get out of the driver's seat altogether, which is really hard for me to do.
Right.
Really hard. You know, I have a lot of responsibility when it comes to like being the head in my family and being the matriarch in my family now. And I don't like to delegate things. I don't like to let other people help me because I feel like if I don't do it, it's not going to be done, or it's not going to get done, one period, or it's not going to get done the way I wanted it to be done.
Right.
And so those are the kind of things when you say go within that I reflect on personally. And it's different for everybody. Some people, this might resonate with them because they're kind of a strong personality like that as well. And those are sometimes the things that I have to reflect on. Like, why do I feel this need to always be in control? Why do I feel this need? And maybe it's because I don't want to be vulnerable. I want to be in charge. I don't want to let somebody else come in and help me. And what if they fail me, or, you know, I can't trust them for some reason, or something happens, right? So that is me addressing my vulnerabilities and my insecurities, which keep me from letting other people come in and help me and do things for me. So when you just said take your foot off the gas pedal, it just reminded me of that moment. And I just wanted to give an example of some of the things that we could reflect on. And it might be different for everybody. And then there might be some people out there that are just like me, that are like, oh, that's the way I am, you know? And don't beat yourself up about it. It's not about punishing yourself or you're a horrible person. This is natural. And based on your birth chart and the signs that you have and what is going on in your chart, you might tend to be this way or another way.
I want to translate what you said because I think it's a really good point. It's a really good example. Roxanne dio el ejemplo que, por ejemplo, para ella, el revisar, el ir adentro, significa para ella ver cosas sobre la vulnerabilidad, por ejemplo, que a veces ella es la líder. Ella es la líder de su casa, por ejemplo, de su hogar. Entonces, el ella ser vulnerable significaría que ella le va a delegar más cosas a alguien más para que alguien más la ayude, para que alguien más le quite un poco de responsabilidad a ella. Pero el ir adentro le ha mostrado a ella la resistencia que ella tiene a eso, la resistencia que ella tiene a confiar en alguien más, a dejar que alguien más tome el volante y sea líder. Y ella lo explicó así porque ella fue con una doctora que es, she's an herbalist, right? Or
yeah, she's actually an acupuncturist and an herbalist as well, yeah.
Entonces fue a una doctora de acupuntura que trabaja, parece de una manera más holística. Entonces cuando la conoció, ella le dijo a Roxanne que tenía que dejar que alguien tomara el volante. Y qué interesante que a ella le pasó esto, que alguien le diga esto a ella en estos momentos, porque yo conozco su carta y yo sé, I'm telling them that I know your chart. And by the way, everything you just said has to do with that. Yo conozco la carta de Roxanne, yo sé los tránsitos que está pasando y lo que explicó el ser más vulnerable es exactamente lo que está pasando con ella. Entonces, esto es lo que estamos hablando, de el ir adentro y ver las cosas que, aunque no las queramos dejar ir, se tienen que ir, porque nos están dejando en el mismo lugar. So, I explained that last part was that this going within and revisiting that and revising that has to do with letting that go, and in order to grow, in order to evolve. And so it's not easy. It's not easy. And another thing that I wanted to bring up, you know, really quickly is that you're going to read in a lot of blogs and whatever, that because this is happening, this event is happening at 0 degrees, that it's a brand new start. You know, it's like I can't wait for this new phase, right? Reading it, like I said, zero in astrology is a big deal. Zero means, like I said, something has to end in order for something to begin. But in this kind of event, especially with eclipses, it's not something that we want changed. It's not something that we necessarily choose to change. It's something that is going to change whether we like it or not. Zero is transformation. Transformation is significant, but it takes away things that no longer serve us. So while it is something good for us in the long run, it feels very uncomfortable to let it go, especially because we are not in control. Control is also a word of Capricorn, right? South Node, Pluto, Saturn, letting go of that control in order for something new to come out, right? Le explicaba a Roxanne que como este eclipse sucede en el grado cero, que significa inicios, y que he leído mucho sobre cómo es un nuevo inicio, que es lindo, estamos listos para algo nuevo. Y sí, o sea, es bueno tener ese entusiasmo, claro que sí. Pero cuando se empieza de cero, no siempre es fácil. No siempre es fácil. Es algo, y especialmente un evento que pasa en eclipse, no es necesariamente algo que nosotros estamos dispuestos a dejar ir, sino que es algo que se nos va para nuestra evolución. Que sí, cuando en 6 meses, en un año, cuando nosotros veamos atrás, vamos a decir, como en muchas cosas de nuestras vidas, vamos a decir, qué bueno que eso se fue. Pero en el momento, a veces eso no es fácil. Y lo que quiero decir es que eso es normal, está bien sentirse incómodo en estos procesos, porque quiere decir que hay cambio. Entonces, si hay cambio, hay crecimiento. So it's okay to be confused. It's okay for it to feel a little uncomfortable right now. Yeah, we should be optimistic. We should be optimistic. These are times in which we're learning so much, in which we're growing. And even though it may feel uncomfortable right now, 6 months to a year from now, we're going to look back like we do in most things in our life and say, thank Goddess that left when it did. Because, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Hindsight is, 2020. Hindsight is 2020 vision. And in this case, it literally will be.
That's really funny. I didn't think about that. I mean, how many times, like, you and I have been through over the last 12 years, through different jobs, through different companies, through different careers, through all kinds of crazy relationships. I mean, we've been through a lot, and thankfully we've had each other to get through some of that, because I don't know how we would have. And we're not where we thought we were going to be 12 years ago.
No.
Right? But I think we're both very happy with the directions that our lives have gone in. Not to say that we don't have any troubles or we don't have any problems, but our lives have really shifted in ways where we're doing the work that we really care about, we're really passionate about. I'm passionate about education. I'm passionate about working with parents and getting them involved. And you're passionate about astrology and helping people, guide them and give them reassurance that, one, everything is going to be okay. Everything is happening for a reason.
Right.
And this is another way to look at it. Don't look at it necessarily. I always go back to the hope for gain versus fear of loss type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we're scared sometimes to let go of something, but when we do, we make room for something else. We make room for a career that we're really passionate about, a relationship that is healthy and happy, whatever, relationships with family members, whoever it may be. But we can't get to that good until we let go of some of that bad, or just things that are not healthy for us. They don't necessarily have to be bad. They're just not really benefiting us.
They've just expired. They've served their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to take a moment to give an important date, which is when the Sun and Mercury will meet during Mercury's retrograde period.
Okay.
The Sun and Mercury will meet on June 30th. Okay.
Okay.
So Mercury retrogrades, it goes back a certain number of degrees, and then when it's about to go direct, it goes back and moves forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So during that retrograde period, the Sun and Mercury meet. And what that signifies is the Sun brings light to new information, Mercury, okay? So from here, this week, from here on to June 30th, we are in this like back and forth. It's not clear. Things are not clear. Wherever this falls in your chart, however it may be for you, whatever it is you're going back and forth about. June 30th or around that date, something usually clicks. Information comes to light. Somebody brings you the information you need. You get an email. Just be open. Set an intention to be open to new information, because that day, not only does Mercury and the Sun come together, but then Pluto and Jupiter are together as well. And Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn is a very powerful energy of self-empowerment. Okay, so here we have all of this time where we haven't been clear of what's going to happen. And for a lot of people on a very, very personal level, like what's going to happen with my job, what's going to happen with my home, very, very important things, very fundamental things in someone's life.
Right.
So June 30th comes along. It's like a self-empowerment that regardless of the lack of clarity, I've got this. I can do this. And information may come to you that can help that.
Mm-hmm. Now, sorry, go ahead.
Quería darles una fecha muy importante que es el 30 de julio. Y el 30 de julio se juntan Mercurio y el Sol. Siempre que Mercurio está retrógrado, Mercurio tiene un punto en su retrogradación en la cual se junta con el Sol. Ahora tenemos el Sol, que es luz, a Mercurio, que es información. Entonces, el Sol le da luz a nueva información, ¿ok? En medio de esta retrogradación, sí, hay confusión, no tenemos mucha claridad, la comunicación está un poco confusa, pero en medio de toda esta confusión, si te tomas y si te haces la intención de ser receptivo y de ser abierto con lo que Dios, el universo, lo que tú creas, la información que te trae, vas a tener someone's asking 30 de julio o junio.
Junio. I think you were saying that. I was like, I'm just
going to correct. Okay, I'm in junio.
I caught that too, and I was like, I am not going to correct her on her Spanish because I'm the one to do that. But since
Merc retro, right there.
That's okay. Yeah, exactly.
30 de junio.
Yes, junio.
El Sol y Mercurio se van a unir, donde puede traer nueva información a ti. Solo mantente abierto y mantente receptivo a cómo esa información que te va a ayudar puede venir a ti. Pues ya puede ser email, alguien que te habla, una llamada, un texto, lo que sea. O algo se te ocurre donde dices, esa es la solución o eso es, de ahí voy a empezar. Porque en esa fecha también ya van a estar juntos Plutón y Júpiter. Y Plutón y Júpiter juntos es una energía de empoderamiento, ¿ok? Entonces tenemos esta energía donde algo se va a aclarar un poco más y tú vas a sentir el empoderamiento para ir a esa dirección. Y entonces esto es muy significante porque estamos pasando una época donde muchas cosas no son claras y para mucha gente esto se ve en su hogar. ¿Qué va a pasar con mi trabajo? ¿Qué va a pasar con el dinero? ¿Cómo voy a ganar dinero? Esa fecha es muy importante. que la tengan en mente.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also important to mention that not feeling a sense of clarity or being clear on things during Mercury retrograde is normal. That is normal. And, you know, retrograde is lasting from, I believe it started Thursday and then it's ending in about 3 weeks, right? I don't know the Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, it ends actually July 12th.
Okay, so it's usually about 3 weeks, but there can be a shadow period before and a shadow period after, which is why we may have seen our phones start acting up on Tuesday, 2 days before the retrograde. And I just like people to know that if you feel like things are unclear or you're frustrated that you can't get the answers, that's okay. That's normal. And typically when we come out of this kind of fog, we start to get clearer messages. You know, if you were trying to figure out which direction to go with a job, should I look for a new job? Should I try to wait, you know, to see what's happening with my old job, maybe because of what's been happening? You tend to get those answers towards the end. So I just like to give people that assurance that if you're feeling that way, that's okay. That's very normal.
Yeah. Right. Roxanne, otra vez trajo un punto muy importante que durante los periodos de Mercurio retrógrado es bastante normal sentirse, como dije, confuso, las cosas no están claras. Es normal sentirse así. Ese es el clima astrológico y como explicamos anteriormente, tiene su propósito. Pero para ella es muy importante que todos entiendan que no hay nada malo con un poco de nebulosidad. Porque, por ejemplo, del 30 de junio en adelante, cuando Mercurio retrógrado ya empiece a direccionarse, las cosas van a ser más claras. Ella trajo el ejemplo de que esta semana, por ejemplo, los celulares no servían. Hubieron varias compañías de celular en las cuales no podías hacer llamadas y no podías recibirlas. Eso es una indicación de Mercurio retrógrado, y Mercurio retrógrado empezó a retrogradar, creo que el miércoles o el jueves, no recuerdo muy bien, y eso pasó el martes. Entonces, cada que Mercurio está retrógrado, siempre tiene un espacio antes y después en las cuales las cosas están un poco nebulosas. Las fechas de Mercurio retrógrado ahorita son de esta semana, que fue el jueves, empezó el jueves ayer, hasta el 12 de julio. Entonces, esa es el marco de retrogradación. Pero días antes y días después de esas fechas, las cosas todavía están un poco nebulosas, porque como cualquier energía necesita, es como cuando vas a prender tu carro, que tu carro ya tiene un poco de tiempo que no lo usas. Tienes que dejarlo que se caliente. Entonces, así funciona. Así funciona cuando Mercurio empieza a direccionarse después de su retrogradación. So I gave an example of, like, you know, you were talking about the shadow period. So it's like not using your car for a bit, right? And you should, when you turn it on after it being stalled for a bit, you should let it heat up for a bit before it takes full speed again.
That's a really good example.
So that's pretty much how getting out of a retrograde period works.
Yeah.
Another thing that I wanted to bring up really quickly, which I think is really relevant, is because Venus is still retrograde, right? And now we have Mercury retrograde. What tends to happen with Mercury retrogrades without Venus being in the picture is that a lot of exes come back. Exes come back. We've experienced this. We've sent messages throughout the years during Mercury retrogrades. Exes come back. With Venus in the mix, that's probably even more true, okay? You have to remember that this energy is happening to everybody. This energy is making everybody rethink, revisit everything we've talked about, you know, for the last hour. Now, it's really important that you remember that because we are all setting new foundations for ourselves, that you don't fall back into certain patterns. the whole back and forth thing with people, it's just getting old. And if it's not getting old, you have a lot of work to do. Like at some point, that stuff gets really old. And so if you have somebody coming back into your life, and it doesn't even have to be a romantic partner, just someone who at some point was a part of your life and perhaps wants to revisit, really take into consideration, don't just act on autopilot and say, yeah, sure, because it feels familiar, because it feels like home, right? Like the old sense of home. Think about it. We're going through a transformation. This is a huge transition. So are you going to continue seeing yourself in a certain light, or are you going to move forward to a new light, even if you don't know what that looks like? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when people come back and we're trying to move forward, they remind us of that safe space. And moving forward is scary. Moving forward is scary, especially when nothing is clear, right? So when we have somebody come back and they feel safe and they feel like home, we can be distracted. But that's when you stand your ground and you say, okay, does this person fit what I'm looking forward towards, or are they stuck in the same? Because not everybody's going to move forward. Not everybody's going to be on an evolution, right? Not everybody. When we get back out into the world from quarantine, we're really going to see whose level of consciousness went up and who's really resisting it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can definitely vouch for the exes that like to pop. Mm-hmm. That happens to be a lot.
Yeah, it does. Like a lot.
And, you know, I think it is, as much as, you know, when I have ended relationships, I've been very certain and very clear about the decision I'm making and knowing that that's the right thing. But, and those are the relationships that I find that are easier to let go and move on. But the relationships that ended where maybe you didn't end it didn't get to end it in a healthy way. You didn't really get closure. You didn't really, you know, somebody cheated on you and then they took off and then you didn't hear from them, which happened to me 17 years ago. And you know, it's those are the ones that for me tend to linger. Mm-hmm. I think because maybe I didn't let go of it in a way on my own where it was like, this is really where I am and I'm ready to move forward. And those things tend to want to pull me back and hold me down. Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly put in that situation. And that's because there's a lesson that I'm not learning. And like my mom used to say, I like to learn lessons the hard way. The only way you learn, Roxanne, is if you learn the hard way. So I give you enough rope and I let you hang yourself. Every time you do. That's what my mom was just like, oh, like salt in your wound. But you, right? Like so often mothers are right, you know? And so that I really hold on to that and try to remember that when those situations do happen, because I do tend to have to keep repeating the same lessons. But then you get to a point where you're like tired of it. You're like, enough. I'm tired of this. I keep seeing that I'm attracting this type of relationship, this type of person. And in order, once I raise my vibration, I evolve, I grow, then you start to attract people on that level. But if you're here, you can't attract the people here. You're only attracting the people here or lower based on your vibration, the energy that you're putting out. So there might be some other ladies out there that can relate to that. Right. And you're not alone. Again, a lot of us have had to go through that, and it's just those lessons trying to teach us.
Right. So, un punto muy importante que quería explicar es que con Mercurio retrógrado y Venus retrógrada, Venus es el planeta de las relaciones, del amor, ¿ok? Hay la tendencia de que regresen los exes, exparejas, personas, aunque, o si no es una asociación o una relación romántica, durante Mercurio retrógrados siempre hay alguien que regresa, por lo general. Pero con Venus en esta alineación, es más probable que alguien regrese. La razón por la cual esto es tan importante es porque quiero que recuerden que esta energía le está pasando a todos. Todos obviamente estamos bajo la influencia de esta energía. Entonces, quizá como tú estás reevaluando, revisitando ciertas cosas, también otra gente está haciendo lo mismo. Y quizá tú te le vienes a la mente a alguien y dicen, no, quizá cometí un error, quiero volver a hacer esto con ella o con él, como sea, ¿no? Lo importante de recordar es pausar, porque ahorita nada está claro y nadie en realidad está muy claro. Es pausar y si alguien regresa, preguntarte en realidad si esta persona cabe en tu vida en este momento. Preguntarte en realidad si esta persona va contigo a lo nuevo o si te quedas en lo viejo porque se siente familiar, ¿ok? Porque lo que vamos a empezar a ver, especialmente cuando empecemos a salir otra vez de nuestras casas, lo que vamos a ver es quién elevó su sentido de conciencia y quién está teniendo bastante resistencia a elevar su conciencia. Entonces, si tú eres alguien que te estás tomando en serio esto de quién soy yo, cómo me habito, cuáles son mis hábitos nuevos, cómo me quiero yo, cómo me mimo yo, si tú eres de esas personas y alguien del pasado viene, eso no quiere decir que viene porque sí tenía que ser, sino que viene porque quizás se está acordando de ti, pero tú tienes la responsabilidad de pausar y decir, ¿esta persona cabe en lo nuevo o no? So one thing that I added at the end was that it's our responsibility that comes from both the word Capricorn, but also Cancer, because Cancer is the mother sign. So how do I mother myself? And how do I take responsibility for me now, for taking care of myself, for seeing how I inhabit myself, and what that means moving forward? And is that person who is potentially coming back, are they, because this energy is so strong and so drastic, if somebody comes back, that relationship better be a complete 180 from what it was before. It cannot be, maybe, well, we'll work on it. No. This energy is shifting all of us towards something new. And you owe it to yourself, whoever you are, to be the best in the best position possible. Why not? Because again, it's scary. It's scary to move towards something new when we don't know what it looks like. And it's easy to go back to what feels comfortable. That is North and South Node. North Node pushes us towards something we don't know. South Node is something comfortable.
I love that. You just came full circle, like from the beginning of the conversation till the end. So I know we're about at time, and I know you and I could keep going.
I know.
So we will be back in 2 weeks. We want to let everybody know we're going to be back in 2 weeks on July 3rd, Friday, July 3rd. And that's because we have another eclipse on the 4th of July, correct? So that's our series. And then was there anything else that you didn't get to mention? Any like particular points or dates that you wanted to mention before we?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Quickly. Okay. So another thing that I've seen a lot in blogs and what's written out there is that we set intentions and that, there's rituals and all of these things. Personally, the way that I've experienced astrology is that, I have my daily rituals, but right now in this climate where we're going through so much transformational energy because we have 3 eclipses, to set intentions doesn't really make sense because we're not really clear as to where we're headed. And the changes that are coming to us, the changes that we're seeing are not really things we're choosing. They're things that we're being aligned to. That is much greater than, setting a particular intention, because a lot of times our intentions can come from ego. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that right now, it's more of a space to sit back and really, again, go within. Okay. Antes de terminar la conversación, solo quiero decir que siempre leo mucho sobre rituales y rituales de intención que se hacen durante lunas nuevas o lunas llenas. Ahorita estamos en un proceso de 3 eclipses, donde todo se está cambiando, lo queramos o no. Entonces, ahorita no es necesariamente el momento de acertar ciertas intenciones, porque todo lo que nos está pasando en realidad nos está pasando y tenemos que poner atención. Porque a veces cuando ponemos intenciones, están empapadas de ego. Y el ego no es malo, no estoy diciendo que es malo, sino que como hemos estado hablando durante toda la conversación, es dejar guiarnos, es el ir adentro y poner atención a lo que está pasando adentro. Entonces ya cuando salgamos de estos eclipses ya tendremos un poco más de claridad y las intenciones van a tener un significado bastante diferente. So what I added at the end was that the reason to just not set like intentions right now is because, like I said, we're in a transition, we're in a transformation. But later on in the year, if that's something that we want to do, we'll be much clearer about what we want. So we'll be in a different space to practice things like that. Mm-hmm. Because right now we're really meant to go within. We're really meant to pay attention to that.
Yeah. And maybe we can touch on that a little bit more in 2 weeks when we come back, looking forward to intentions and a little bit more about what that means to us. But before we go, I just want to acknowledge one thing. I don't feel that it's right for us to sign off without acknowledging that today is Juneteenth.
Absolutely.
And it is a celebration. And I wanted to share a funny story. Whenever I think of Juneteenth, I don't know about you, but I think about MC.
I have been thinking about MC this whole time.
Always. Yeah. So MC is a woman that we used to work with, African-American woman that we used to work with at our very first job where we first met. And she was also the president of the Black Chamber of Commerce. I remember she would always come over and say, well, the chamber is doing this. And the chamber loved her. She had great energy. And she was the first person who ever told me what Juneteenth was. I didn't know what it was. I had never heard about it. Of course, I never learned it in school.
Right.
And you would always I just remember her always going around and making a point to tell all the young Black men that we worked with, which there were several, about their history and about their heritage. And she would quiz them. And if we were there or we were around, she would make sure that we knew as well what Juneteenth was. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Absolutely. And also just also mention that later on today at 7 p.m., La Comadre is going to be doing their second Sista Comadre episode. And I'm sure they're going to be talking about Juneteenth on that episode. And so that's later on today at 7. So please tune back in. I don't think I will be on that, but Alma and some of the other comadres will be on there and be talking about what that means. So if you haven't learned about Juneteenth and you'd like to learn more, I don't want to present any information inaccurately, so I'm going to leave that to them to do. But please come back and join us at 7 p.m. tonight, and then we'll be back with Astrology Chat in 2 weeks on July 3rd. And we'll see you then.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Oh.